Today on Locked On Canadiens, the Habs sweep the season series against the Mammoth. We talk about what needs to be done, where they go from here, and what the difference makers were in that game.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canadiens. I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. As you know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. We do want to welcome you to a PJ party. We're having a pajama party. You know, these late games, we're staying up for them. And thankfully, the Montreal Canadiens did not make us pay for it with a loss. They were able to win. My name is Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick, here to discuss that game with my wonderful co-host, also known as maybe it's Ian. It's Ian Boisvert. Ian, you've got your UP pajama getup ready. I think we've only got one of these games after this, if I'm not mistaken. There's a San Jose game coming up, but we don't have very many pajama parties, so please join us for this one. All right.
Yeah.
The Canadiens won a game against Utah. It was tough. It didn't look pretty. It didn't look beautiful, but they got the 2 points. And then we want to talk a little bit also about how Josh Anderson has been looking lately, because he's really been picking it up. And then Marty has a lot of decisions to make before the Vegas game on Friday. We'll talk about some lineup predictions as well. But first, let's get into that Utah Mammoth game. The Canadiens, with their customary good first period, bad second period, and then try to recover in the third period game. This is the formula for the Montreal Canadiens. And we saw that when they flipped that script and they had a really good second period, they beat the tar out of their opponent. It was like a shellacking. So how do we go from here to there? Maybe we talk about that in the third period. Let's talk about this game. Nick Suzuki with 2 goals.
Yeah, 3-point night for him.
Mm-hmm.
In his career, he now has 23 3-point games of games of at least 3 points. The Canadiens are 21-2 in those games. So if he's picking up a bunch of points, you're probably winning. I don't know how they managed to lose 3 of those games, to be honest with you. Those were some pretty bad Montreal Canadiens teams. That line cooked.
Yeah.
That line was their most productive, obviously, and it was. It was starting to look that way against Toronto as well, right? That Bolduc was finally kind of getting his footing, was putting together consistent efforts. I did love that on the first Suzuki goal, it starts with Jakub Dobes in his own zone trying to make a cross-ice pass on his own blue line that hits JJ Peterka in the skate, is nearly a turnover, and Peterka said, "No, you hang up," and he handed the puck right back to him, and the Canadiens come up on a 3-on-2. I thought that was such a change of pace from what we've seen from Bolduc, in just that he has made those plays in the past and has been burned for them. And this one, the puck just bounced his way. It's about time the puck started bouncing for him.
Yes.
This was his first career 3-point night. So hopefully a sign of things to come, especially with, the second line kind of taking a step back offensively in this one. I think that was a lot of the game script was just, pointed that way. Yes, Demidov scored at 5-on-5. It was kind of mid-change, broken play, very weird sort of circumstances for that goal.
After he'd been plastered to the boards.
I watched that hit a couple times. I think Schmidt missed him. I think Nate Schmidt did not get all of him. It looked and sounded tough.
It sounded bad.
You watch it back, Demidov kind of sees him coming and sidesteps him. So it definitely, the contact wasn't as bad as maybe it would have seemed. Also, that goal was just a thing of beauty. That is a goal scorer's goal. He notices he's in a 1-on-1. He uses the defender as a screen, and he fires an absolute perfect shot to beat Vejmelka. I was over the moon with that, because we haven't seen him shoot in a lot of situations like that. He had another one of those, I believe, in the second period. He had a shot, like that. So hopefully a sign of things to come for him shooting more. He is on a bit of a point streak, I believe 4 games, and I believe he has regained his lead in the National Hockey League for rookie scoring. So, I think at this point still it's Schaefer's Calder Trophy to lose. Matthew Schaefer for the Islanders has been unbelievable this
Isn't he
season.
on pace for like 80 something points?
Just this, like they're talking about potentially putting a 19-year-old defenseman, 18-year-old defenseman on Team Canada at the Olympics, and people aren't immediately shouting the idea down. That's how good Matthew Schaefer has been. But Ivan Demidov, still all world, going to be all world in his career. Not worried about him one bit.
Yeah.
It was nice to see him, score a goal for the first time in a while. I believe he's at 5 now for the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I'm seeing from Ivan Demidov is better decision making, which again, he's always been good at that. Like he's always been a really good instinctual player. But what I find is like there's something about like maybe he's getting a little bit bolder or a little bit more self-assured in his moves.
Yeah.
And you can watch it. You're literally watching him grow up from game to game, right? Every game is an experience. Adam Engstrom, debut. Didn't play very many minutes. I
Yeah.
guess and it was just under that, right?
Yep.
But he had it was good. It was not eventful. Like there was only one kind of misread that I saw from him, but otherwise it was what we were expecting. On the other hand, Mike Matheson did not come off the ice.
Yeah. And I thought it was a pretty mid night for that pair, for Matheson and Dobson. I thought Matheson was fighting the puck a lot. I thought Dobson was making some pretty silly choices with the puck. It was
Especially positionally. I didn't like his positioning.
it was a rare off night for those two. And like last year, if Matheson had a night like he did tonight, the Canadiens lose by 8. That's sort of what happened, and that's why the magic versus tragic thing sort of started. He wasn't Magic Mike on against the Mammoth, but he wasn't quite tragic either. He was just kind of getting through each shift. He was having a tough night, not in the sense that like he was a liability out there, but that pair is so good generally that when they have even a slightly off night, it's noticeable. That's sort of where we ended up with this one. For me, my turning point in this game, Laura, was the power play in the third period. Juraj Slafkovsky scores, and then the Utah Mammoth used the NHL's coaches challenge rules for offsides as a get out of jail free card because Juraj Slafkovsky's skate was an inch over the blue line. He was standing still. He wasn't even skating. He was just standing there, and they called it back for offside. Nick Suzuki decides, nah, I don't care about that, and he puts the puck in the net. That could have been devastating for this hockey team. And not only do they immediately score, they score on the same power play. For me, that is, I don't want to say it's the reason they won that game, but it really feels like the game could have pivoted there. And maybe they don't get the tying goal, or maybe they don't get 2 goals and they go to overtime. This was the first time all season the Canadiens have won back-to-back games in regulation. So for Suzuki to come back in and just the whole power play unit to just make that happen, I thought was a huge positive swing in momentum, especially for a power play unit that's been much maligned. 2 goals in this game. They needed it. They got it. That play for me is what got the Canadiens 2 points.
Yeah, I think the reaction is getting a lot better. We talked off I was about to say off the ice. We talked offline a little bit about how we watch Toronto respond better to a goalie being pulled than Montreal generally does. So I was a little bit worried again when that goal was disallowed. I thought that they would get deflated. So I feel like that kind of the fact that they rallied anyway, and it was tough. Like Utah was really buzzing. And it was tough, but they managed to not only score but defend that lead, I think is a huge positive. Well, let me ask you what you thought of Dobes tonight.
I thought early he was still fighting it. There were a couple pucks that you're like, why is this bouncing off of him? The third period, he was all world, and they needed him to be. He was perfect in the third period. He made some massive saves. And I know it sounds silly, but the way he was flashing his glove on some of those saves made me feel like he is back.
Yeah.
That he's regained whatever he might have lost. I don't think you can fault him for any of the goals that were scored against. The Canadiens' second period was a disaster class in defending. They decided they were done defending. They weren't doing it anymore. Good luck, Dobie. You're on your own.
I did feel that he was having a rough second period, but I think that might just be in context, right? But like you said, he brought it back in the third, and like I found that the rebounds he was giving up weren't as juicy, right? And like you said, flashing the glove, right? Like the body, like he was again standing tall and like coming out to meet the moment instead of allowing the goal to get to him or
Yeah.
past him, right?
Back-to-back games for him where he's got a save percentage that starts with a 9. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. And if you watch him as the buzzer goes with the puck being held along the boards, that was the most fired up I've seen him since maybe the playoffs.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was so jacked up to win that game. And when he's riding that and feeling that way, that's when this goalie is at his best. Very excited to see what he does next.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to see what game he gets because there's a back-to-back over the next Friday and Saturday. But you got to imagine he's getting one of them. I want to see what he does with that next start.
And we'll talk about that in the third period. But up next, we want to talk a little bit, we want to give some flowers to some guys, including Josh Anderson, who has looked phenomenal of late. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so I do want to talk a little bit about Josh Anderson. It feels like he has woken up. I think at the beginning of the season, there was a little bit of trouble getting his bearings because so much of that bottom six that had become um, not like a tight, a reliable unit, right? With your Yoel Armia, your Emil Heineman, your Christian Dvorak, so much of the bottom six had been so strong. So with the personnel changes, I feel like he maybe had a little bit of trouble finding his footing. We kind of saw that with Brendan Gallagher too. Like the early games from these two guys, we didn't love, especially Jake Evans always has it on. He's always like fully, fully charged, fully ready to go, fully doing all the right things. But I felt like they were, I don't know if they were visibly struggling, but they definitely seemed a little bit confused about their role. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I kind of think that us as viewers and fans of that this team, we watched that line and maybe didn't fully understand what the goal of that line was. And I talked about it, it must have been weeks or a month ago at this point. The goal of that line is to take tough shifts and turn them into offensive zone opportunities. Doesn't necessarily mean they're scoring. It just means they're taking a difficult opportunity and they're turning it into an offensive zone faceoff. In this game against Utah, I think that line did that perfectly.
Yes.
They continued, Marty started them, I believe, in every period, at least in the first two.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Xhekaj stopped getting ice time entirely as they were trying to, hold the lead in the third. But the goal of that line is to take those starting shifts that are oftentimes tough to pull off on the road or some defensive zone starts and move the puck out of the zone and muck it up down low and force the goalie to hold on to the puck. That line did that so well, and Josh Anderson's a huge part of that.
Yeah.
His speed is tough to handle on the breakout. His size is tough to handle down low. He's the perfect package of power forward, and that's what makes that line effective, because Evans isn't all that big. He's effective at what he does, but Josh Anderson is able to get down low and muck it up. That's why I think Florian Jakub looks really good on that line. He's able to do the same.
Yes, he's got that size. I think the thing with Josh Anderson is that we're noticing, because now he's being rewarded a little bit with points. He got 2 goals against Toronto. I think one thing that I have noticed in his Canadiens tenure, there were often moments where I felt that he knew how to use his speed, but he did not know how to use his size. He did not know how to use his weight. And I feel like recently I'm seeing a lot more of him being able to use that weight. And I know it's a cliche to talk about playing heavy, but that's what I feel I'm getting from Josh Anderson. Like, that's the Josh Anderson experience now. And the Montreal Canadiens, let's be honest, need that, right? Yeah. They've got speed. There's a lot of slight players on this team. So I do think, and again, it's not to say they're not like, you've got your large, you've got your Slavkovsky, you've got your Kirby Doc, you've got these large guys, but I feel like Josh Anderson has become particularly adept at using his weight to impose his will.
Yeah, I think so too. I think again, when I say he's the perfect package of power forward, it's it's the it's the force in which he plays with. It's how heavy he is, how big he is, and the speed that he moves with. It's a rare commodity in the National Hockey League. It's why, I think even with the contract that he's currently on, I think a lot of teams would be salivating to get their hands on a guy like Josh Anderson because of what he's able to do. He's not going to score 20 goals. It's not really who he is at this point in his career. He's not going to be a 40-point guy.
Yeah.
But I think him adding the penalty kill as an element of his game. Could you imagine, like, the Canadiens penalty kill? They've given up a goal in each of their last 6 games. Could you imagine how much more boned they would be if they didn't have Josh Anderson? Like, they'd be in massive amounts of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think him adding that has been, a great feather in his cap, but also just out of necessity for the Canadiens. And the Canadiens should be very, it's American Thanksgiving as you're listening to this. They should be very thankful that Josh Anderson has been able to add that to his repertoire, right? That he's able to be that guy.
Yeah. Oh yes. Happy Thanksgiving to all our American listeners. I did also want to talk about Brendan Gallagher. I feel like he was playing defense this game.
Yeah. And I mean, late in the game, Marty was using him as like a utility forward.
Yeah.
When Florian Jacki was sort of put on the bench because they were trying to hold the lead, Gallagher was getting shifts with him. Gallagher was getting shifts with Suzuki. And I was like, man, that's never happened. Like, they never play. You never see Suzuki and Gallagher on the ice at the same time. It's very odd. I often wonder, what is keeping them from using Brendan Gallagher as a penalty killer? Because I'll be honest, I think this penalty kill needs help.
It does.
I don't think that they are. I don't think that they're playing with the right amount of intensity, especially since Newhook left. They're missing a lot of speed. Gallagher's not going to fix that speed. Don't get me wrong, but I think they have to start trying some stuff. I floated the idea on the last episode because of a question that they got on Bastien and Godin about potentially putting Slavkovsky on the penalty kill. I wonder how long it is before we start to see Brendan Gallagher get a look there. You just apply pressure to the point man, try to knock pucks away, block a shot from now and then. I'm wondering what's next for that unit. And I kind of think Marty might be tipping his hand a little bit by going, you know what, we need a defensive presence here to seal the game late in the third. Brendan Gallagher go out on the ice. It's not something that he's been particularly. I don't think he's ever been a penalty killer in Montreal. So for him to be used in this facet now, to be like, we're sending you out to shut down a game, either he's saying we need another defensive forward, or Gallagher's going to be that defensive forward.
I think it's really interesting that whenever there's a player that, like, you're kind of wondering what they're going to do, like Marty just throws them onto the penalty kill and they become something else.
Yeah.
It does seem to be a default thing. I do think, though, that ultimately, I think that they need to, at minimum, sustain this if the Canadiens have any shot at a good season.
Yeah, I do too. I think they need more help defensively up front. We know they're going to get Goalie back. It's going to take some time, but they're going to get Goalie back. That's going to be a huge boon to their penalty kill, right? It means that you have 4 solid penalty killing defensemen. I thought it was very funny in this game that Matheson took a tripping penalty. By the way, 3 of the Canadiens' 4 penalties in this game were taken by penalty killers. So can't do that. Kapanen, Carrier, and Matheson. It's tough.
Let's not.
I would prefer if they didn't do that. But like, I think we're getting to a point now where getting a 4th defenseman back to be in that rotation would be really helpful. Carrier, Goalie, and then Matheson, Dobson are on your penalty kill. I mean, Mike Matheson's legs have to just be complete jello by the end of games. I just cannot think about how much pressure is on him to penalty kill. So they need help. But I think, I like what I've seen from the forwards. I think some of the forwards are potentially going to chip in more on the penalty kill. But Hudson playing a penalty kill shift while Matheson was in the penalty
That
box
was so funny.
really funny. He did pretty well. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do? It also means like Jaden Struble, we really don't think you can be a penalty killer. Like, that's not good
That's
either.
rough.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that actually in our next segment. But first, I do want to remind everybody that tomorrow is our Friday mailbag. There is no game. So we have room for lots of mailbag questions. My co-host has the night off. So whatever you want me to talk about, please send mailbag questions, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. Leave it in the YouTube comments, or you can reach us Locked On Canadiens on Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok. Mailbag questions, please, 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 please. All right. Up next, we talk about what changes Marty makes versus the Vegas Golden Knights. Hint, hint, hint. We think that there might be some players going back to Laval, at least one. That's coming up in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by Monarch. Let's be honest. Most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. It's helped me really realize where my money is going. All of my incidental spending was really counter to my goals of building wealth. Monarch was, it was so illuminating with the visual dashboards and the smart tools that make it easy to understand where your money's going, how to make your money work harder for you. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, so we still haven't seen Alex Texier. We've seen him in the viral video clip of Arber Xhekaj disbelieving his scoring prowess. So in this game, obviously Marty had Arber Xhekaj go out and played Engstrom. And he said it was nothing against Arber Xhekaj's play. It was just giving Engstrom the opportunity, right? We saw that he didn't use Jaden Struble on that penalty kill. So let's start with the back end. Do we think that either Engstrom or Struble sits for Arber Xhekaj next game?
I think they would take Engstrom out and they would put Xhekaj back in.
Is it because Vegas is a very annoying physical grinding team?
Maybe. But I think maybe too it's because Marty got a look at this game, and when we didn't really get a chance to use Engstrom a lot down the stretch. Not to say you can use Xhekaj a ton, but you can probably use him a little bit more than maybe you used Engstrom in this one. Plus, he does lean on Arber from time to time to kill penalties. So
Yes.
like that, at least there's a security blanket in that. So I personally, I would go back to Xhekaj in this one, and it's nothing against Engstrom. They wanted to get Engstrom in. The Habs subreddit completely lost their minds when they saw that Xhekaj was sitting for Engstrom. Like, the things I was seeing there were just completely detached from reality. I don't know
again like that Marty hates Arber? Because Marty does not hate Arber. Marty loves Arber, okay? Marty absolutely loves Arber.
Someone was like, "Oh, Marty has his favorites." And I'm like, "Are you implying that Jaden Struble, the guy who didn't make it into the lineup until someone got hurt, is Marty's favorite?" That's like, you need to listen to yourself when you say these things. Like, that's nuts. That just doesn't make any sense. So anyway, I don't want to pre-argue with people I don't even know. I would go back to Xhekaj in that game. But then I struggle finding a place where maybe you can find a way to get Engstrom back into the game. So I mean, maybe it's a one and done, and he goes back to Laval once Montreal's back home next week. But would you do the same? Would you put Xhekaj back in?
I would put Xhekaj back in, and I would also put him for Engstrom, but that's because I think like Vegas is just a very physically imposing team. And Arber Xhekaj is going to be needed. And it's nothing against Engstrom. Like this podcast is like, we are unapologetic Adam Engstrom apologists. Okay.
Yeah.
So we love him. I do think though that if this were the ideal Canadiens lineup, so healthy Doc, healthy Newhook, healthy Goalie, Adam Engstrom would come in really handy against a team like Colorado. That's where you need your speed. That's where you need your smart offensive plays, right? So in an ideal scenario, that's where we would see him again. But this is not an ideal Canadiens lineup. This is not, they're injured. They're not doing great in the second period. So, Colorado is going to have them for lunch. So maybe we leave Adam Engstrom out of that. And again, this is not me being a pessimist. This is me being a realist. But let's get back to the Vegas game. We didn't see Jared Davidson a whole lot in tonight's game. And we know Alex Texier is coming in. I have really liked what I've seen from Jared Davidson every game that he's played.
Yeah, me too. I think that, this was just a situation where the matchups were more important to Marty.
Yeah.
Where it was more important down the stretch to get him into situations where he could be effective.
Mm-hmm.
There was I don't think there were a lot of penalties in this game, but, he doesn't play either special team, so that's just time he's not getting. I think, this has been a really successful first recall to the NHL for him. I don't think it's going to be the last that we see of Jared Davidson in Montreal. But yeah, I think a more veteran option is needed from a guy like Texier. And again, it remains to be seen what Texier's role will be on this team. I on the broadcast, Cheryl Pounder was saying that she thinks middle six potential for him. I personally don't see it. I think he's middle six implies potential for a second line, which I just don't think is realistic.
I think he's a third liner.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily that I have any aspirations for him other than being a third liner. And if he's that for this team right now, that's perfect. That's all you need him to be.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think he gets in. I think you keep Florian in for a little bit longer just because he has that X factor.
I was going to ask that. That was going to be my next question. Like, what do you do with Florian? I think you play him against Vegas. I think he's the ideal kind of person to play against Vegas.
Yeah, and you have both Florian and Arber in that lineup, and I think that helps. That helps the Canadiens keep a little bit more toughness. I think on the broadcast on TSN, they made an interesting point. When Arber is only ever able to muck it up when after a whistle, when the play stops in his own zone, because he's a defender. And when a play stops, the defenders are not allowed to jump up into those scrums around the goalie. Otherwise, the faceoff gets taken out of the zone. On the other hand, Florian, as a forward, he has the opportunity to start a lot of that noise when he wants to. So like they sort of complement each other in that way, just because they play different positions.
Yes.
So I think that gives the Canadiens a bit of that physical element that they're always looking for. It was also, I believe, in 32 Thoughts this week from Elliot Friedman that the Florida Panthers were looking at Florian Jacki in his draft year. He would have been a perfect Florida Panther, and everybody in this league should be thanking their lucky stars the Canadiens took him when they did, because that would just be, you imagine he'd be making their NHL team like right about now in the shape that they're, oh my God, it would just be, it's horrifying to think about. So thank you, Nick Bobroff, for saving the hockey world from itself.
Yes, absolutely. I do think that in the regular season and possibly even the preseason, although I can't remember, I did mean to look this up before the podcast. When both Jack guys are in the lineup, the Canadiens are undefeated so far. So
it's the power of brotherhood, I guess.
There's the power of friendship. They should start their own like power of brotherhood. There's the power of friendship. Just them two.
They do the same thing, but like 2 feet to the right of the power of the power of friendship circle. Like they do their own. Yeah.
I think it's like it's a little bit sad now that the power of friendship is only 3 guys.
Yeah. You think maybe they'd invite some new guys in there,
but then you're gonna have to kick them out when everyone's healthy again.
No, well, who? I get. Yeah, that's right. Kirby Doc is in there. That's why. That's one of the guys that's not in it. Yeah. I see what you mean.
Yeah. Okay. So, last question. Do you play Sam against Vegas, or do you play him against Colorado, knowing that Colorado's probably a long shot to win?
I don't love the optic of putting Sam in against Colorado because it's already a lost cause, because that's A, waving the white flag, which I hate, and B, you're essentially telling your once starting goaltender, it's all right if you lose this one. Like that, to me, I don't love that. And all that to say, like, Vegas is also very good. They have Mark Stone back. He scored against Ottawa on Wednesday night.
Of course he did.
These are all, I don't want to say they're must-win games because it's November. They're not must-win. But, Montreal, even though they won, they were back in the playoff picture for all of about an hour. And then Ottawa won their game in a shootout and kicked Montreal back out. However, the Canadiens are currently second in points percentage in the Atlantic Division. They've just played fewer games than everyone else in the division. Everyone's played at least 23. Montreal only has 22. I mean, Boston's at 25. By points percentage, they're actually fifth in the division, and yet they're second right now in points. So, like, a lot to shake out still. But these are important points. There's 4 points left this week for the Canadiens on this road trip. They're quite good on the road. Colorado, I know you'll probably talk about Colorado later this week. They've won 10 in a row. Eventually that's going to stop. Eventually they're going to hit a regression thing. Why not against Montreal on Saturday? I think that'd be very funny. Yeah. We have a perfect week after everybody in the entire hockey world was like, yeah, these guys might actually stink.
I feel like someone should tell Nick Suzuki that I was talking crap. Because every time, we call them out or like we don't have faith in them, they turn it around. So
yeah. Well, I on yesterday's episode, I was covering the points pace that he was on, and he was going into yesterday's game. He was on pace for exactly 89 points, which he had last year. And I was like, I would take the over on this. I think he's gonna bounce. He's gonna snap out of this, and then he immediately did. So maybe it's time for positive reinforcement with Nick.
Okay,
maybe we're done.
End the Colorado win streak.
Yeah, there you go.
They will not be lunch meat for the Colorado Avalanche. That's positivity. All right. I do think against Vegas, like at the very least, we'll get a good show. Even if I don't know who's going to win that one. I hope it's the Montreal Canadiens. Would love to see the Montreal Canadiens win both of the next 2 games. All right. I want to remind everyone before we go to trivia, please send me your mailbag questions, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. You can reach us at Locked On Canadiens on Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok, or you can leave a YouTube comment with your mailbag question in it. I will be doing the mailbag solo. My co-host has the night off because it is American Thanksgiving. But don't worry, he'll be back next week. And so it is time for our trivia.
Yeah, 2 things for me. I'll also be on Game Over on Saturday after the Colorado Avalanche game with Habs and Avs superfan K. So come check us out over there. Also, happy Thanksgiving to our American listeners. Please be safe. Don't drink and drive. Drinking and driving gets really bad around the holidays. Please be safe. Don't do any of that. I just need to say that every time there's a holiday because I find it's important. All right, Let's do our trivia. And I'll get out of here for the week. And then you'll see Laura tomorrow for the mailbag. Yes. Yesterday's question. Only 2 Habs rookie forwards have played over 80 games in their rookie seasons. Who are they? Laura, do you know the answer to this one?
I do not.
It is Saku Koivu in 95-96 and Michael Ryder in 03-04. Haven't been a lot because they haven't always played that many games. And for a rookie to play that many games, it's kind of a big deal. So
it is a huge
I imagine that should he stay healthy, Ivan Demidov will join that club, as will Oliver Kapanen. So that might double by the end of the season should those guys stay healthy. Super Rain was the only one to get that one right. Another shout out to StatHead, the paid subscription service from our friends at Hockey Reference. That's how I find a lot of these really silly questions. So if you want to support them and also get access to a really cool database of stats and trivia, go check them out. All right, today's question. This former Hab, Duck, Blackhawk, Oiler, Coyote, Jet, and Leaf celebrates his birthday today, November 27th. Who is this player? Former Hab, Duck, Blackhawk, Oiler, Coyote, Jet, and Leaf. If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. Let us know any way you know how, and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode of the show.
You heard him, and you can reach us, like I said, at lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com, YouTube comments, or on Instagram, Blue Sky, or TikTok at Locked On Canadiens. In the meantime, also make sure you are subscribed to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. We love saying that. It's all thanks to you guys. We really, really appreciate you. Tell your friends about us, etc., etc. We got asked about the contest we were running. We are still running that, so you'll have more details about that tomorrow. I will remind everyone what that is. In the meantime, you can find my co-host at Maybe It's Ian. You will find me at The Active Stick. Thank you so much for listening, and I will be back tomorrow.